Okay. All right, this is Ken Long at Tortoise Capital. We were finally able to break through the storm and get this recording going for the first follow-up to the strategic thinking workshop that we did in Raleigh with Van Tharp Institute. So I solicited questions from the students. We're about a month after the course, and we've had a chance to settle in on the material, I think. So this is the first of 3 follow-up webinars that we'll do. We have another one 2 weeks from now, and another one, the final one, 2 weeks after that. So this is a chance just to re-engage with that material with a little bit of perspective. So what I am proposing to do on this one is to go through the 3 questions that I received, and then, time permitting, I have a discussion on systems thinking that came up in one of my lectures at the military college today that I thought was instructive. So I'm going to share that with you. So the first question was, can I discuss the concept of scaffolding in more detail? It seems to me to be a great concept in trading, but I don't really have a grasp of it yet. So here are some notes to share with you. Now, the lecture notes have already been posted on the strategic thinking website. That's the one where you guys had the information already. So let me show you where that can be found. So if you go to the tortoisecapital.net website, tortoisecapital.net, and you click on the strategic thinking tab, you'll see right up in here follow-up webinar number 1 notes. The strategy sketch is the mind map that I'm going to share with you here in a little bit, and then the strategic systems thinking workshop notes is the Word document that I'm taking the material from for this next little piece of lecture. So there we are. Okay, so scaffolding. The first sense of the word scaffolding is, I think of it as a cognitive support structure. It's an aid towards thinking in the way that a craftsman uses scaffolding to build houses or whatever. Scaffolding is that portable, flexible, safe, robust, adaptable infrastructure that we use at the job site in order to get the work done as we move around the job site. So good scaffolding has all of those qualities. And what it does, it provides safety in the sense that it stops you from going off the deep end. It allows you to approach the work in a safe manner, in a systematic and a structured manner. Because it is flexible and adaptable, you can use it for many different kinds of systems. You might be building a wall or a roof or an arch or an aqueduct, anything like that. The same scaffolding can be adjusted to the nature of the work being done. And so in that sense, it's a very general purpose, flexible, robust, and adaptive system. So we can think of mental scaffolding then as those devices or tools or habits or checklists or processes that we use repetitively that become like tools for the craftsman to engage in the conduct of our trading practice. It could take the form of having standardized procedures or techniques for like the 2-hour battle drill or the daily after action review, or a requirement for 2-to-1 reward to risk, or a structured way to interpret price. So you could see the RLCO framework as a piece of scaffolding in that sense, that it enables good decision making and trade framing. Those are the essential core level tasks that we do as traders. Being able to systematically, consistently, and in a disciplined way identify reward and risk by using that RLCO and Bollinger Band and RLFF frameworks, or frog box frameworks, what we're doing is freeing up cognitive processing costs. We're freeing up the central thinking processor because we have reliable habits that we can go to. In the second sense, I use it as structured learning through shared mental models. In this case, what I'm trying to do is share with you certain strategies and ideas and concepts. And so by providing you mental models, checklists, process lists, sketches, flashcards, these narratives, I'm trying to provide mental models which are a very efficient way of storing information and for transferring knowledge from brain to brain. That's why I use visuals and stories and use analogies and metaphors a lot. The third sense is as process checklists you can think of as scaffolding, in the sense that what they do is they provide for you the safety of a robust rule set, but one which can be followed mechanically. So that has all the qualities of good scaffolding. A good systems template allows you to develop systems that have all of the component pieces identified and integrated so that each new system that you build has that common lineage or frame of reference as all the other systems, and allows you to make comparisons between systems. As a scaffolding is a price structure for support and resistance levels. So we use various mental models and processes to estimate reasonable reward and risk. Yesterday's high or low, the 10-day high or low, the different Z levels in the Bollinger Band framework, and the regression line crossover slope. All of those things act as ways of interpreting price action to find key price levels where we can expect trending behavior to start or to stop. So trending behavior starts when the RL10 and the RL30 and the price have all left the river. Well, that's a piece of cognitive scaffolding that is adaptive. As volatility changes, the width of the river changes, and so the threshold for defining what the beginning of trending behavior is can vary for one instrument over time because we have an adaptive, flexible scaffolding. That's what I mean by that. A general purpose approach to trade framing, letter E. Scaffolding allows, that's where I am thinking of when I build the different price levels intraday that define the statistically informed moves. So a frog box, a hybrid frog box, the range stat, the gain stat, the fail stat. All of these things are measures statistically computed that give us the ability to estimate places where support and resistance is likely to occur, where trends start or stop in those regions. So those pieces of trade framing technology are now, or tools of the trade, are now essentially pieces of cognitive scaffolding. They allow us to use standard practices to reduce how much we have to think about each and every task. There are whole categories of tasks that we perform better when we're not actively thinking about it, that we're trusting our muscle memory, which has been trained and honed. So in many ways, driving is like that, soccer is like that, where you're actually better to play in a flow state than you are trying to be overly cerebral about it. The RLCO and the Bollinger Band framework, I would add to that one the RLFF framework, the frog box frameworks. These are all pieces of scaffolding that allow us to bring discipline and structure to the dynamic challenge posed by the markets. And then finally, I think of market classification strategies as a form of scaffolding, because those cognitive devices, those mental models, give us the ability to describe large moves or abnormally large moves and knowing the boundary between them, and having a sense of what the market can do on an intraday or swing basis. So that's the main idea behind scaffolding. It has all of those different qualities, and it's really an aid to cognitive decision making. Um, that's what we mean by scaffolding. Okay, if there's any questions on any of this stuff, please go ahead and shoot them into the question box. Otherwise, I will take your silence as concurrence, and we'll go on to the next topic. Okay, so the next one is, could I please explain the Tortoise Daily Market Commentary as an example for systems thinking? What's the strategy behind the overview? And for example, 4 questions. What are the underlying assumptions? How do you get the big picture? How do I use it as feedback for learning and refining my processes, or for developing new trading systems altogether? So first things first. The underlying assumptions, really, I want to say, the long answer for that is the 150 essays that are in the ebooks on market beliefs about systems, self, and the market. I mean, at some point, those are all my beliefs, are the first 150 essays that I could write about it. And all of the systems descriptions for particular specific systems contain what I think are the essential beliefs that are involved in trading each one of those strategies. So in the channeling in the system, for example, it's based on the assumption that buying on dips is a good idea in a bull market, proven by evidence. And so there are micro beliefs and assumptions, there are macro beliefs and assumptions. So what I would say the most important ones, though, to me, are this idea of market classification and market and sector performance. I really put those together. That market classification does have some kind of persistent effect on the nature of the psychology of traders in many different time frames. So depending on how the parameters are set for the methods that you're using to describe the market classification, those are all pieces of systems thinking. That those are essential ideas about how the market works and where opportunities might be found. I talk about that a lot in each of the swing systems, the beliefs that are required to follow in order to trade them or to see them as opportunities. So market classification is the first place I would start, then systems descriptions, and then the frameworks, the RLCO, the Bollinger Band, and the Frog Box, and the RLFF techniques. Those are all frameworks that reflect my basic assumptions about how the market works and about how adaptive it is and so forth. Willie's made a comment or question that many of these scaffolding tools and techniques provide meaning in the chaos and gives a reference. Yeah, that's exactly the purpose. These frameworks or tools or pieces of scaffolding are not the structure themselves, but they provide a frame of reference in which we can make consistent judgments about the nature of price behavior and a consistency in the way that we try to frame trades, given that there are many different variables in play. A good frame of reference, a good scaffolding, is going to allow you to bring just enough order into that chaos in order to frame trades. Yeah. Next question was, how do I get the big picture out of it? I'm going to show you further down the page a video on my daily trading process where I go from the close of the day immediately into planning, preparing for the next day's execution. Right? And I'm not going to recreate that video. I'm just going to give you the link and have you follow up on that. But in general, I see in myself a two-part process for coming up with the next day's big picture. And by next day, I mean both swing trading and day trading. And that is a combination first of top-down market classification, which describes the kind of a market it is, the size of the typical moves, any directional bias it seems to have exhibited over the last 30 days. And then a bottoms-up inductive approach, which takes a look at specific rules and patterns and reward to risk computations to determine if we have trading opportunities. So my big picture then is really a combination of a top-down deductive intuitive approach and a bottoms-up inductive context-based tactical approach. And so by merging those two things together, I can develop a robust big picture that gives me things to do if the market's quiet or noisy, if it gaps or doesn't gap, if it's going up or going down, and it gives me a big picture that gives me enough choices that I can trade each day without feeling I have to explain how the market actually works or why these different things in a fundamental way should work. I find that my big picture is only has to be as detailed as it's needed in order to give me a dozen trading ideas for the next day. So that's what I want to say about the big picture. I'm going to scroll down a little further right now, and I'm going to say what would be my process of going from this daily overview, which is the Tortoise Daily Market Commentary, the daily report. What's my process for turning that overview into a concrete trade? How do I decide which trade out of sometimes many choices to take? All right, so that question is answered with, I think, great precision on this YouTube video, the top one, the daily preparation process, and then how that plan and prepare gets turned into actual execution is described in this one, this YouTube video. They're both about 15 minutes long. You can see the links there, but you can also find them on. Let me call that up. Hold on. If you go to the strategic thinking page, that resource page, and again, that's the strategic thinking tab, and the password is strategy with a capital S. So if you were to go down to practical exercises, this one here, the daily preparation process, mapping a process for preparing each day's trade. That's exactly how I do it. Then the daily after action review, a systems approach to the daily learning and accountability. That's what happens immediately after the closing bell. So I can start deep processing the day, learn what I'm going to learn from it, and figure out what I need to add to the units, what I need to add to the next day's performance notes. So kind of bookending the execution of the day, preparation on the front end, assessment on the back end. So that's what I want to say about that. That's a good video. So that's how I go from the big picture to the daily process. Third question in this stack, how do I use the big picture and results, I'm going to presume, as feedback for learning and refining my processes for developing either new systems or refining an old system? How do I use the Tortoise Daily Market Commentary and my results? It's really it's a two-part question, two-part answer, and I'm going to reference the main idea behind my style of trading. I would describe as the Toyota production system, which combines two elements simultaneously: design and improvement and quality control on the macro level and on the micro level. And so the Toyota production system, if you read the book, The Machine That Changed the World, the Toyota production system, it describes how Toyota applied the principles of Dr. Deming in order to come up with this production system. So at the macro level, I'm using my systems to get broad market and sector health checks and trends and directionality and insights. I'm using it for micro opportunities to frame specific trades for particular systems in certain directions with a reward to risk ratio. So it acts both as the top-down feeder of broad market data, but also the inductive bottoms-up identifier of opportunities. Toyota designs new systems from scratch every 4 years. It takes them that long to come up with a completely new car design that incorporates all the technology they are reasonably assured will be available starting in 4 years. At the same time that they're redoing the last successful design by completely redesigning from bottoms up, they're also engaged in continuous improvement at the micro level inside work groups and quality circles and making micro improvements. Their thought is that after 4 bites at the apple, after 4 years of a production run, that they have probably optimized that platform in all its parts as best as they humanly can. And it's probably time to stop putting band-aids on things and to come up with a genuinely new concept. So that's the idea of macro and micro. Now, Kaizen is a management approach that resides in the middle of an organization between senior leaders and line supervisors and individuals. Kaizen is a mindset in which everybody's looking for constant improvement to eliminate waste, to standardize, simplify, and thrive. And so Kaizen is an approach that allows us to share visions, to collaborate in healthy ways while still retaining personal responsibility for our results. So Kaizen is a way in which you can promote both good management, good design, new ideas, and improvements to existing processes. Creative environment, the Tortoise Daily Market Commentary really reflects the accumulation of a lot of insights from a lot of people, a lot of different trading systems and approaches and indicators, and some of which I've invented, some of which come from the literature. But it's an eclectic mixture of many different styles and many different ideas over many different time frames. So that creates the creative conditions in which new ideas can come to mind. If you're just patient and can quiet the chatter of the inner monkey, you can actually cause some primitive thoughts to get exposed to the light of day and then be able to turn that into effective trading systems. Secondly, the chat room and then the live trading weekends and research weekends in Kansas City have been an unbelievable source of creative thinking and alternate perspectives and process improvement. So the creative environment that you build for yourself should be creative enough that you have an uninterrupted flow of ideas that can be tested to see if they hold water, but without jeopardizing the need to also be able to produce results from other more mature systems. Basic research in the form, I read everything that I can. I'm always reading blogs with guys whose brains I respect. I do my own research. We have the research weekend. All of those things sort of conspire to raise the level of research for our community of practice. And that's why I think the chat room and the base camp are so darn important, because of this continuous network effect, where we're all smarter because of the network we can plug into. Basic research is a way to stimulate creativity and critical thinking. I would also add loosely coupled network theory. You're asking me how do I refine processes or get new ideas. In network theory, you have these different systems called networks floating around in time and space, and they have boundaries. And in order to rapidly improve your creative qualities, your creative habits, you want to be on the edge, the outer edge of your demographic or your network of your profession, so that you get the maximum exposure to ideas from the outside. And then you are in a position where you can consider whether or not that outside information has some validity inside your shared experience in your profession. The downside is that you may have to give up some doctrinal knowledge or procedural knowledge or positions of authority in order to have the freedom to be able to work on the edge of your network and to be open as an agent of change to the good ideas from unusual places. I find that by putting yourself into those conditions on a regular basis, you can actually start improving that skill. So loosely coupled network theory is it's the mastermind effect. One of the reasons to engage in a community of practice that is diverse is that you get plenty of different perspectives. And then when you can add into that good citizenship and good neighborliness, you can achieve some powerful things. Finally, just the input process output itself of executing systems that generates results. Those results can be studied using descriptive statistics. We can use statistical process control on it to find micro improvements to the system, and at the same time using our artful judgment to find creative ways to do things in a bigger way. So those are all the different ways that I think I use the community of practice, the chat room, the reports, as the camaraderie, as a way to refine my thinking about my current systems, as I try to find answers or I look for opportunities or answer questions other people may have. I get enough ideas for potentially new systems or new indicators, and I'll design indicators if we're not satisfied that the conventional package of indicators is telling us what we need. Third and final question here. What would be my process to take this daily overview from the tortoise market commentary and turn it into a concrete trade? How do I decide which trade? These three videos are really absolutely fundamentally answers to that question. The top one is called the daily prep process. That really goes right from the moment the market bell rings to close the market. I start going through a structured process of understanding what happened, refining some signals, selecting some for further development, developing those in a consistent way, in a structured way, informed by statistics, and then coming up with a set of scenarios to use for the next day that I rehearse, so that when the market starts behaving in certain ways and if it triggers the criteria, then I can execute according to a rehearsed plan. Well, that's what that first video talks about. And really the second video too, although that has more of a day trading flavor to it, while I have found that most of our day trading systems scale pretty well to daily trading or weekly trading. The daily execution process video is really more about intraday, but the principles are the same as far as bringing a structured approach to different cycles of time that make sense in your preferred trading window. And then finally, the last one, the daily assessment and after action review form, is the specific technique that I use in order to get the feedback that's available from that day and turn that into systematic planned action. So I would encourage you to review those videos, and if they don't answer the question that you really have, then just send me a follow-up question. All right, so that's what I wanted to say about the questions that came from the students. I would like to shift gears a little bit and talk about, let me get this thing now. I have about 10 minutes that I can talk before I have another webinar tonight for my doctoral guys. I'm going to talk to them about this particular slide I'm about to show you. So let me find it here. Let's see. Okay, so this is from a whiteboard discussion this morning, and I'm just going to hit about 10 minutes of highlights. I'm probably going to record a longer version of this, and I'm going to make this a separate movie because I owe this to my doctoral students and then also back to the Army officers that I was talking about today. So I just want to give you a flavor of what's coming. And so the idea is this one. Let me take a picture of this real quick. Okay. Let's see if I can get this. I'm trying to get it so I can give you a moving cursor that you can see. Yeah, for crying out loud. Okay. Getting there. Hang with me. Okay, so the main idea that we're talking about in this one is we were talking about the challenges of this guy called the EUCOM commander. That's the command. That's an Army commander who is responsible for Europe and Central Asia. He's sort of like a regional proconsul. And what he's trying to do is he has a job, and his job is to figure out what to say to his subordinates about the future in order to improve the position of the nation in that geographic region. And what he's concerned about are these four things here: end states, next states, named areas of interest, and then the drivers of change. So the end state is he's concerned about going from where we are to where we might be in the future. And we think of that as a destination that can be described, that has characteristics. So it's some kind of future state. And what we're learning is that there's no really such a thing as a perfect end state. It's really a series of next states or incremental steps towards a more well-defined future. These named areas of interest, these NAIs, are things that happen along the way that give us insights into how well things are going. The drivers of change are those elements in this social environment that are causing change to occur in certain ways. So one of the things that he has to do, one of the reasons it's so hard to say something intelligent about the future is this problem right here. And it has to do with the rate of change. And that things are changing faster than ever. So everywhere you look, things are changing faster than they ever have before, and those things include variables like, and think about how this applies to your trading. Technology, politics, economies, media, culture, demographics, education, all of those things are changing at a faster pace every day than they ever have before. And when you recognize that change in one area can lead to change in another, what you have are these multiple variables all changing faster than ever. And then what happens is things are changing faster than you can actually compute. Now, when you are looking at a large section of the world like Europe and Central Asia that four-star general has to deal with, it is fair to say that if we have an idea of what's going on in the current situation, like an estimate of the current state, which is the summary of everything that we see going on in these mission variables, we can answer these kinds of questions, like where are we, what's going on, what's changing, and what's driving change. And that becomes, we can make that into a narrative or a story about the world as it currently is. And now the world is such that tomorrow is probably going to look mostly like it did today. And then the day after that's going to look like today, and so on. But at some point, you get out here into this region where it has gone far enough. Let's see if I can draw that line. What I'm trying to show here is that there is some point at which, moving from the current state here in the orange, that as I start going forward through time, the accumulation of change now becomes too difficult to predict with reliability. The spread starts getting wider and wider, and that's what these little boundaries here are going to try to reflect, if I may. That while you're moving along along the center line, in each of these little increments is some time frame, you might have a normal amount of change where the current drivers of change are behaving in predictable ways. And as long as they stay between this variation now, this is the variation in possible future states where it's a predictable amount of change, that the current drivers of change still seem to be operating like they're in charge and the world is understandable. And so a belief that the world will continue to behave the way it always has means that you would expect to find yourself within the boundaries of those two green lines. But because of this problem we saw over here with the rate of change increasing so much, we know that change is not just linear, that you get these moments when things get really wacky. So what we want to do is, at some point, we have to make sure that for those parts of the future that we cannot predict with precision, how can we get our arms wrapped around the world of the possible beyond that which we can predict with certainty? And so this is on the one side, but until you get to that point, you're in the world of rational planning, in which the future is knowable, and the way you understand it is by extending trend lines. But then once you get past this point of you can't compute it any further, you get this world of scenario planning, in which the future is surprising by definition. So now out here, because we cannot compute all of the possible future worlds, what we have to do instead is design some scenarios. And I've shown this as regions 1, 2, 3, and 4. Each one of these is a representative sample of one of the kinds of futures that we might be able to see. And really what we've done is I'm going to draw this with outer limits here in the red and say, if I am sufficiently imaginative, I can imagine the world could, in that future, could be anywhere along this event horizon, way out here. Any one of these worlds is a possible future scenario. And because I can't compute the probabilities of any single one of them, I can't predict which one is the most likely. What I can say is, give me a set of scenarios in which I have accounted for major differences in the way the world could be. And I have some inside these green lines that look like the world if the current trends continue. But then I have some out here on the extreme, so if the world really goes crazy because of some of these variables acting really nuts, then I will have reduced the probability of strategic surprise. And that's the purpose of conducting scenario planning, is to be able to reduce surprise. So that UCOM commander, that 4-star general, or that head of state, or if you're a trader and you're trying to maintain a portfolio of positions in the world, what you cannot afford is strategic surprise. You don't want to wake up some morning and discover that the world has fundamentally changed and you didn't know it was happening, and now you've lost all your competitive advantages. Oops. Let's try that again. I can't delete everything. So in order to prevent strategic surprise, what the leader needs to do then is make sure that he is sufficiently imaginative with his staff to have a representative sample of future states, and then determine strategies that would be appropriate along for each one of those. And then his job is to identify these little checkpoints or drivers of change, and look for indicators which tell me, as I progress from the current state towards this future state that I'm worried about, do I seem to be heading towards one rather than the other? And then what I need are indicators that tell me where I am on this solution surface. So when we think about strategic planning then and managing uncertainty, let's remember that what we're trying to do is we're trying to take an uncertain future that we cannot predict and then try to say something intelligent about it in such a way that I can improve my position on the basis of informed decisions that I'm going to make along the way, so that as the world becomes whatever scenario it's going to become, that I have ways of determining which path I'm on, right? So if it turns out that when we leave the station and things are going this way, at some point I have to detect that we're outside of what was previously normal, and now we're out in this region 4, and now I should be adopting strategies that are optimized for a world in which this seems to be the case. And at the same time, be ready for things happening over here in number 1. So I have to have markers of normal and abnormal behavior so that as I get results from my systems, I can determine if the world is still behaving the way I estimated that it would from the last time I did that current state estimate. And then my job is to ensure that I have a frequency of updating my worldview so that as the world changes, I can be informed of it and I can see where it's going, how much it's going, what the new drivers of change are, and then I can use that information to help me become more adaptive in the way that I respond to a dynamically changing world. So that's the main idea behind this particular sketch. I'm going to record more about this with the better graphics, but I felt like it was a pretty good discussion we had this morning as we were teaching the officers how to begin to understand the strategic variables for different regions of the world so they can become effective staff officers. And this is the process that we use at our highest headquarters in order to come up with robust, adaptive, flexible, efficient, and effective long-term strategies. Okay, so that's everything I wanted to cover for tonight. I will have the recording processed and hung on YouTube and then posted on that same page that I showed you before, that had all the strategic resources for the course. So at this point, I will just open it up to any questions you may have before we sign off. So over to you. Okay, so I don't hear any questions. If any occur to you, then please just use email to get a hold of me and shoot them over to me, and I'll get them into the next briefing in a couple weeks. And like I said, I'll get this recording posted. The notes section has already been updated. And this stuff is posted over at the at that resource page. And looking forward to future discussions. And I have to get ready for my next class. So you guys take good care and take care of each other and your families. Be good.